So over the years, I've shot a lot of surfing. I've gone on to license some of my films to networks, I've partnered with brands for surf-related content, and I just spend a lot of time in the water filming surfers. And because of that, I've learned a lot of different little things that I hope to share with you in this video. Before we dive into the technical aspects of filming from the water, we're first going to cover the equipment that you need to do so. So the first, and probably the most important thing you need, is a camera. The first feature I look for in a camera is good battery life. The worst thing you can do when you're out in the water is have to come back in, miss some quality waves to go change your batteries. A lot of mirrorless cameras have really good battery life, so that's a great place to start. The second feature I look for in a camera is good internal stabilization. There's a lot of moving parts when you're out in the ocean. There are waves, you're trying to move and pan with surfers, there's a lot happening. So having good internal stabilization is a great tool to have in your camera. The third feature I look for is a camera that has the ability to change lenses. If you've watched this video, odds are you've shot on a GoPro before, and GoPros are great, don't get me wrong. I love them and I highly recommend them. But one thing that's kind of limiting the GoPro's technical ability is that it always has this sort of wide angle look. There are ways to make it less wide angle, but for the most part, you're kind of stuck in this one focal length. The beauty about filming from a water housing and having a mirrorless camera and something you can change lenses is you can go out and you can try all sorts of new looks. When filming surfing, variety is really important. You want to capture a wide, medium, close-up, extra tight shot, so when you're going into your edit, you have different options to choose from. If you're only stuck with one focal length, maybe a wide angle or maybe a super tight angle, that kind of limits your options. So now that you've picked out your camera, you have something with good battery life, good internal stabilization, and the ability to change lenses on your camera. Now, the fun stuff. One crucial piece of equipment is the flippers that you use. There are some flippers that are really long. Scuba diving flippers may be a little bigger than the flippers that you might be used to seeing when you're filming surfing. These are small and they're lightweight and they're good. They're easy to travel with, which is a perk when you're going on surf trips and filming surfers abroad, like I'm doing here. But just making sure that you have something that fits your foot well and can propel you quickly through the water. A huge part of filming surfing from the water is being in the right position, and these will help you do that. Okay, when entering the water, another important factor, if you're in flippers, to turn around. It's much easier to walk backwards against the water than trying to walk forwards with flippers on. Just a little hack. Okay, now that we're done with the flippers, we're gonna talk about the water housing. The water housing is another very important part of this process, or else you won't be able to take your nice mirrorless camera that we just talked about and bring it into the ocean. There are a lot of different types of water housings out there. I'll link to all the gear that I use in the description below. When it comes to a water housing, there are sort of two features that I look for. The first is that your camera and your water housing are compatible. The buttons on the back and a lot of this is designed so that you are able to have full control when you're out in the water. You may need to be changing your white balance, your shutter speed, your frame rate, all sorts of different settings when you're in the water because of changing conditions, changing lighting. And if you're unable to do that, you're sort of limited in what you can do out there. So all of the buttons on the back of this camera are designed such that when I put my camera in here, I can change everything on the go in the water. I'm not locked into anything on my camera. It's nice to not have to change anything, but I would say 100% of the time that I'm in the water, I end up changing some setting. So making sure your camera and your water housing are compatible is the first feature I look for. The second feature I look for is actually the front, and this is the port of the housing. I have a flat port here, which has its own benefits, but I would recommend if you're just starting out to have a dome port. A dome port is rounded on the front, and it's really good at keeping water droplets off of your lens. Water droplets can ruin a lot of footage. We've all had the GoPro shots that get ruined by the water droplets. So in order to keep that off of your water housing, all you actually have to do is lick the water housing. I know this may seem gross and a little bit weird, but this actually does an amazing job at keeping water droplets off the front of your lens. There are different oils and things you can buy to do it, but I find that saliva works the best. For whatever reason, whatever is in your saliva can help propel that water and give it an oily surface such that the water droplets just fall right off. But once you do that, put your dome port back on and you are good to go. The final but somewhat optional piece of equipment I like to have is goggles. Goggles are really nice when you're doing a more staged shoot. So let's say you're shooting for a company or some sort of advertisement where you're trying to check off shots on a shot list. If you're filming surfing this way, you can actually kind of direct your surfer to do certain things. Maybe you can go to a flatter section of water, you can put the goggles on, and you can then see above and below the water just like the camera does. Like I said, this is a somewhat optional piece of equipment. If you have the time and luxury to stage certain shots, then you may want to use those. If you're out in the lineup just filming high performance surfing, those won't be necessary. All right, the flippers are on to get out of here. Let's move to the next location and keep the party rolling. All right, the waves are a little small, but the lighting should be amazing. Heading out at sunset. I love shooting sunset on a west coast of somewhere because you get the sun behind the subjects, which, if you've seen any of my other videos, you'll notice that backlighting is the key to creating a visually interesting image. It's also fun to make friends with the other photographers that are out here too. ¿Cómo está? ¿Todo bien? Fue buenísimo. Yo pensé que vamos por aquí, pero no sé, las olas son un poco mejor allá. All right, now that we have our gear all prepped and ready, we have our water housing, we have our camera with good internal stabilization, with good battery life, with interchangeable lenses. Ideally starting out with a wide angle lens and a dome port on your water housing, it's time to check the forecast. Your job as a filmmaker is to capture the surfers in the best environment possible. So when you're planning these shoots, plan around two things. One, good waves. Two, good lighting. Best wind and the best waves and the best lighting doesn't always happen at the same time. Just make sure you prioritize whatever it is that your goals are for filming for that session. If you're wanting to make really great high performance edit, focus on getting the good waves. If you're showing a documentary maybe and some sort of lifestyle piece about surfing, maybe opt for shooting at sunrise or sunset to kind of capture the visual aesthetic and the beauty of surfing. So now that you've picked the right time of day, whatever that means for you, best waves or best lighting, making sure that your batteries are charged, your formatted memory cards are in your camera, you have sun protection on. If you're surfing in a cold weather location, make sure you have a wetsuit. When it comes to filming in a wetsuit, I like to have something that's maybe 1 or 2 more millimeters than whatever the surfers are wearing. So if the surfers are wearing a 2 to 3 millimeter wetsuit, I like to wear a 3 to 4 millimeter wetsuit to kind of give myself a little extra warmth. When you're filming from the water, I find that I don't work up as much body heat to warm up the water inside of my wetsuit, so having a little thicker wetsuit will really help when you're filming. It also gives you a little more buoyancy, which is also helpful so you don't have to tread water as much the whole time. This next point is crucial, and this is the difference between filming mediocre shots of surfing and great shots of surfing. Great surf filmmakers know where to be in the water to capture the wave and the surfer in the best way possible. Basically, positioning really matters. The reason it matters so much is surfers will perform a specific maneuver on a specific part of the wave. For instance, if you're trying to capture your surfer do a big maneuver at the end of the wave, you might want to be farther inside so you can capture that maneuver on the closeout section. If you're trying to capture the lifestyle of surfing, sometimes it's more beneficial to be closer to the takeoff spot because that's typically where the wave is biggest and where it looks the most exciting. That first moment of them popping up is a really beautiful image. So when you're out there, there will be a little bit of tweaking at every new surf break you visit of where exactly in the water you need to be. But just remember that positioning is really important. So if you're not in the right spot and you don't feel like you're in the right spot, make sure to move. It may sound simple when I'm just telling you this here on a YouTube video, but when you're out in the water, it becomes a little more difficult because you're dodging surfers, you're trying to be respectful of not being in anyone's way, while still trying to capture the shot. It's a fun dance, and I encourage you to go out and practice because by practicing, that's where the best skills are gonna come from. And on a similar note, being a strong swimmer is also really important. When it comes to filming surfing, when I go on these expeditions to film all over the world, I make sure to train before I go. Going into the pool and practicing your swimming, going into the weight room and lifting weights, if you're feeling not very confident when you enter the water, you can get in a lot of trouble out there. There are rip currents, there are a lot of hazards, you're trying to dodge surfers and fins and rocks and sea urchins and jellyfish. It can get pretty heinous when you're filming from the water. You're just exposed to the elements. So making sure you're prepared, not just mentally, but also physically, to go out and execute this expedition and capture these shots. And finally, I encourage you to be really intentional about your framing when you're out there. It's pretty tricky to frame up a shot when there's a lot of moving parts. You're trying to battle positioning yourself, you're trying to dodge other surfers, there's a lot going on. But framing and attempting to frame and provide an interesting composition is one of the joys that I love most about filming surfing. It is a challenge. You're not in a studio environment where you have control of everything. You arguably have control of nothing. So you're trying to do your best with what you're given. And that is such a fun challenge. When it comes to composing an interesting surf image, I like to follow the rule of thirds. The rule of thirds basically states that anything interesting should happen on 1/3 of the image, allowing for some empty space ahead or behind your subject. For instance, if your surfer is moving left to right through the frame, making sure you have some empty space on the right-hand side of the image to show where they're going, not just where they've been. This becomes especially important when you start filming in 120 frames per second and things really start to get slowed down. If your composition feels bad, everything's gonna feel off. So ensure that you're following the rule of thirds when you're out there, capturing the surfer in the best way possible. Now that you know what the rule of thirds is, it's also important to provide a variety of shots. So making sure you're not just getting one angle when you're out there. It's so easy to do when you're filming surfing from the water to only get one angle. So I feel like I've gotten a lot from one position. I'm very happy with that one area. So I'm moving and swinging to a different area a little farther in to capture a different angle. It's the best shot when you're right close to the surfer on a wide angled lens. You get to see them doing a cut or tucking into a barrel. It's so addicting. It's the shot we all want. But when it comes to capturing the essence of surfing and making a cohesive surf edit, you want to make sure to have a medium shot, a wide shot, an extra wide shot, and don't be afraid to capture the other elements of surfing that's also important. The lifestyle of surfing is equally as cool sometimes. Getting your subjects putting sunscreen on, waxing their board, putting their fins in, unzipping their board bag, taking a taxi on the way to the airport or from the airport with the board bags on top. There are so many types of shots that you can get to film surfing beyond just what you get in the water. Now that you know what to bring, when to go, where to go, and what to do, I encourage you to go out and practice. The best part about filmmaking is the experiences that you learn and the experiences that you gain by going out and doing it. If you're passionate about surfing and you want to document this beautiful and amazing sport, go out and do it. You can listen to me ramble in these YouTube videos all you want, but unless you're going in the water and practicing these skills, you're not gonna get any better. So with that, feel free to drop a comment if you have any questions. I love talking about all of this, so I'm happy to address any questions you have. Like the video if you found it helpful. Subscribe if you wanna hear more about adventure filmmaking and making a career as a surf or adventure filmmaker, and I'll see you in the next video. New videos coming every Wednesday. I love you, I'm proud of you for getting out there. Have the best day ever.